My name is Virgil Tacket, sometimes called Chuck, and I prayed my first prayer 2 weeks before the war ended in World War II, and I've been blessed ever since. I was born in Wisconsin, and I was drafted right after high school in 1943, and from there I went into basic training in Texas, and we trained there for the summer. In the fall we moved down to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and I joined the 88th Infantry Division, and we went from there to Virginia, where we left on the Empress of Scotland ship. One day I got up in the morning and went down in the hole where all the guys were. I told them we captured a German submarine. We had him tied in the back of the ship and dragged him in. All these guys rushed up there to see that, but he couldn't find the submarine. Had to kid him a little bit, liven him up a little. We sailed across the Atlantic and landed in Casablanca on Christmas Day, 1943. And from there we went across North Africa on a 40-and-8 freight train with fat wheels. They bump up and down. We went 3 days and 2 nights on that train like that. We landed in Iran, North Africa there. And from there we trained there for about a month. And we went on a convoy across the Mediterranean. And we landed in Naples, Italy. And we went just north of there and trained a little while. And went into the front line. We relieved the British in the front line. I was a staff sergeant in the war and in charge of 2 machine gun units. And they were 5 men in a squad. And I used to tell them where to plant their machine guns and fire and tell them to quit firing. Otherwise they wouldn't last very long. And we started fighting there, and we fought up through Italy, and we came to Rome. We were one of the first soldiers to march into Rome, which they had left an open city. They didn't fight there. We went through Rome and went up toward Florence and took Florence. And we crossed the Po River on amphibious tanks. And from there we kept fighting up, went up through to the Alps and fought up and down the mountains there, and Germans shooting at us at all times. One time they were firing, I jumped down the ditch and they went just over my back in the ditch with the machine guns. And finally I got out of that, and we were marching down a road there, and a German plane came down straight the road, and I jumped into a hole, and there's another fellow in there. He said, "Don't jump in here at the toilet." He was up past his knees in it. So I took my chances and stayed on the board. And one time I was dug in under a fig tree. Mortar shells started coming through that fig tree. So I jumped out of there, and when I just got out of the hole, and a mortar shell landed right in it. I headed for an old building, and I just got through the door, and one landed in the doorway. And so it was very interesting. Just so muddy in Italy that we'd get so much on our trousers that we had to scrape it off with a trench knife on the outside and then turn them inside out and scrape the inside out. And that was cold mud. Italy was mule mountains and mule mud and mountains, called the 3M campaign. One time they put me in charge of taking rations and equipment up to the front lines. We had to go about 10 miles with these mules. And on the way back, I was pretty tired. I got up on one of these mules, and a mortar came down, just about parted my hair, landed in a truck down below. I didn't stay in that mule anymore. Yeah. I think I've been closer to death than most people alive today. I came close to dying 10 or 12 times in the war. I could say there were 200 guys in our company when we went overseas. There were 17 of us left at the end of the war. It isn't very many. So I'm one of the fortunate ones. They didn't all get killed. Some got wounded and sent back. I don't know how many. But a lot of them got killed, a lot of my good friends. No, you expect to go any minute. That's the way it is. You live like that for 14 months, that's a long time. You lay in those muddy foxholes, shivering, snow on you, with shells landing all around you. It's hard to describe unless you've been there. Anyway, toward the end of the war, got about 2 weeks before the war ended, I thought I was going to get killed. The Germans had surrounded us and they were throwing everything at us. We thought we were going to die. And we got down and prayed, or I got down and prayed, and promised the Lord that if I can get through this, that I'll change my ways. And I haven't forgotten it. So he got me through it. And after the war ended, they put me in charge of a German prison camp. I had about 600 prisoners in there. I used to go through and check them out, and I'd see a cabbage or something. I said, "What is that, kraut?" I said, "We're not krauts." And we teased them anyway. We took good care of them. And after that, we pulled back a ways in the south and stayed there until, June sometime. Then we got our order to go home. So I went back down to Naples. They boarded us on a C-47 bomber. We flew back over to Casablanca, and from there we flew to Puerto Rico and then down to Brazil and back up to Florida. And there I got a pass to go home. So went home and stayed there a couple of weeks and went back to Texas. And I got discharged October 13, 1945, after being in the Army 2 years and 9 months. I never forgot that place. I can still see where I prayed the first time. Very plain. And I haven't been sorry. After the war, I went in business and started a grocery store, or bought a grocery store out. And I was there almost a year and it burned down. And I went from there to Milwaukee and worked for American Motors, and known as Nash Ramler at the time. And I got to go into church while I was there, the Adventist Church. And I was baptized in Milwaukee. And from there, in 1950, I came over to Emmanuel Missionary College. And my experience in the war led me to pray. And then I hoped to find the right church. And I found the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it has meant everything to me since. I look forward to the day when the Lord comes to take us home.